and we'll make sure that we are ready to go. So my name is Susan. I am the training specialist at ProgressBook, which is now part of the Frontline family. If you see the poll that is on your screen, if you could go ahead and answer some of those questions for me, that would really help me out just to make sure I know who is in our session today. It looks like we have mostly intervention specialists, which is great because that's who I really want to talk to. Many of you have quite a bit of a comfort level with the classic system, so that helps me because I can start comparing a little bit what you're going to see in the new system compared to classic. And it looks like most of you are filling out IEPs. Now, we're going to talk about a few other forms as well. I have a lot to say to you, so you might get sick of my voice, but again, put any questions that you have in the chat. We have at least 3 people from my office answering those questions, and LACA, of course, can answer your questions as well as they come up. So let me proceed to the next thing. I sent earlier today, and for those of you who just registered, you did not get this email, but earlier today, I sent you quite a few links to help you in case you need them. So one is a pre-recorded session on YouTube. In case something happens with our connectivity today, you can watch that pre-recorded session. It is going to go over many of the same things I'm going to be talking about today. And participate in live webinar. That's where we are today. So if that's the kind of learning you want to do, ask those questions in the chat. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we will share not only that recording, but the question and answers with you as well. This is designed for intervention specialists, but if you're a service provider or a district leader or another role in your district, you are going to learn what needs to be done in the system, how you can add students to caseloads, find students, and certainly how you can work on those documents. So we're going to go through all the bells and whistles. I'm going to give you some advice about the gotchas. We'll make sure that you see all of that. We also have 2 links for resources. So the first link is the one that you will use now before next school year that will let you see some of the videos from that playlist and any other videos that we add. And it will also have some instructional sheets which are actually connected to the videos. You'll see them in YouTube in the notes section, but if you just want to look at those quick instructional sheets, you can do that with the link at the top right now. The link at the bottom is for the next school year. So when it's time to start the next school year and we put classic to bed, it will ride off into the sunset. We will no longer be using it for the next school year. Then you will see all of the help and information you need in our current webhelp.progressbook.com area. So that's a good place to bookmark if you already don't have access, but I would definitely make sure you get access to this first one. All you need is the link, so you will be absolutely fine. One thing I need to share with you is that we are between releases, and that may not make a big deal of difference to you, but it does to me. And the reason it is because I'm going to be working in one system that has the current version that you all see, and I'm going to be working in another system that has a more recent release that will be coming to you eventually. So bear with me as I might stumble just a little bit going through some of these things, but hopefully it'll all work out. I am truly sorry that we do not have hands-on today. That is definitely an unfortunate situation with everything that's happening, and I hope that you are all doing well in your homes and staying healthy and safe. If you stick around to the very end of this webinar, I will give you some information about how you can play in the system yourself. So stick around till the very end and I'll share that with you. As I said, questions in the chat. I see that we have some going already, and I won't be looking at the chat, but my coworkers will, and they will help you out. If for any reason, my lovely coworkers, I need to stop, please let me know. You can just unmute your mic and let me know if there's something I need to say or do. All right, let us go to what we're going to talk about today. You'll see the link in the upper right-hand corner for these slides, should you want to look at them now or in the future. And we're going to be talking about security, but very briefly. I do not want to bore you with all that goes into security because that is not what most of you do. you do need to understand what the role that is assigned to you can and cannot do. So I'll tell you what I'm going to use today, and I'll let you know, where you might be talking to your district about these very specific security roles. We will certainly be navigating through special services, and we will be finding students. So we're going to be locating students. Very different from what you're used to in Classic. You're going to be able to assign your own caseloads if that's how your district decides to do it. We will create, update, complete documents. We're going to focus on an IEP today. That's what most of you use, but I will be touching on a few other documents as well. The good thing about the IEP, it's the longest document we need to fill out, but it also has all of the dynamic features that you will see in other documents. So if you understand what I'm showing you today, you will be fine looking at your other documents as well. And then we're going to talk about the starting screen, the dashboard, and the student documents after we create our caseload, because it's really important you see what you might be doing next school year from beginning to actually using the system. So today I will be a case manager, which is typically assigned to an intervention specialist. That's the typical role an intervention specialist will have. You will never see the screen that you see on this slide right now, but it helps us to kind of see what a case manager can do. So the first thing I want to say about case managers is that you can assign yourself to a student as the case manager, the person who is responsible for completing those documents for that student. You can also assign yourself as a service provider. So if I have two intervention specialists, only one of them is going to be the case manager for Jimmy, but the other one might be listed as a provider with the category of other, so that they can also work on that student's documents. There's a nice little bit of collaboration that can happen with that. Next, you will be able to see your students' documents, any students on your caseload, on the dashboard and on the student document screen. You have two places that you can look at your students, and those two places are somewhat similar to the task queue in the Classic system, but we'll look at some of those differences and exactly what they do. You will be able to view all completed documents. With this role, you will be able to see completed documents for all students. Again, this is the role that's set up typically for a case manager. If your district has different needs, then you can certainly, I'm going to go ahead and mute unless you need to ask a question. Okay, sorry about that. And you can view all completed documents unless your district decides otherwise. So that's how this one comes into play. Next, you will be able to view, create, update, delete completed and complete open documents for all students. And you will be able to search for any student in your district. So that is the current role I will be using today. If you need something different in your role, you will talk to your leader in your school building who's making those decisions, or you will talk to your ITC, you will talk to LACA. So I'm not going to go through this very much except to say here are 3 other roles in addition to that case manager. And if you have access to the slides like I have in that bit.ly link in the upper right hand corner, you can click on any of these to see a little bit more about those roles. So we do have other roles, and yes, there can even be custom roles. So I'm going to just leave that there and keep on moving through, since security is not really the topic of today's session. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the tour. And I'm going to do this with a few slides, and then I will go live into the system. So we're going to use the across first, and then we're going to go down. So with the banner, there are a few things I want to point out to you. One is the hamburger menu, which is going to show and hide that dark blue section on the left-hand side. So you can expand your work area by clicking on that hamburger button. We also have the usual mortarboard graduation cap that is a shortcut to coming back to the screen you see here. It's your starting place, it's your dashboard. So you can always click on that to come back to the dashboard. If you work in more than one district, and I'm going to really caution you here, if you work in more than one district, there is the ability to switch between districts. However, that is a decision made by the district and it is dependent on your security role. We have the typical ProgressBook icons, and those ProgressBook icons from left to right are your account information, notifications. So there's a little bell there that will have a red dot when you have a notification. The Analytics Hub icon is where you find reports, but that is typically for people who work with the district level to run reports. And then there's that Web Help icon. So I'm going to go ahead into the live system. This is what you're going to see when you first log in, and you are going to choose the icon for the new special services. I happen to have both in my login here, but you will no longer see this icon next year. It will be the new special services icon. As I click on that and have that load up, and remember I said we are between releases, so this demo site is a little slower than the current release. Okay, there we go. So we're going to just start over here. This is what you would see when you first start your new school year. You're going to see absolutely nothing on this screen. Don't be afraid. I'm going to show you how to populate that in just a little bit. So just to emphasize, the hamburger button is simply going to open and close. And way over here is the Web Help, which I would like to click on to show you that it's going to take you to the Special Services Web Help page. There we go. And briefly to share this with you, we do have an area for release notes that you can get to right now. This is the link that I was sharing with you in the slides. You can look at our release notes right now. The most important tab at this time is the training tab. And I'm going to scroll down just a little bit to show you there is an area for case manager, service provider, and teacher. Here are all the videos, and below are all the instructional sheets. I caution you to be aware that if you print these out, these instructional sheets out, you may want to come back here to get the latest version because things are changing. We are in the middle of having quite a few districts. Many of our districts are on the new system. Many of our districts are not on the new system. So we are really making a lot of changes as we go through in preparation for your 2021 school year. Okay. I'm going to go back over here, and we talked about the dashboard, so let me just go back to my slides. And we want to talk about the menu going down. So you'll see you have quite a few choices. One of the choices you have here is to switch from application to application. So we'll look at that in just a little bit. But you also have the option of clicking on the dashboard, student documents, or my students. So I wanted to make sure we kind of talked about the differences, or maybe gave you a little bit of information about what you will find in these different areas. So the dashboard itself is an overview of your students' documents. It's going to have some widgets that we will go over at the end of this webinar. And you can also customize the view by setting up your filters and your preferences. Unlike the old task queue in Classic, you can save this and it will be there for you every time you log in. I think that's one of my favorite things. So those of you who said you are very comfortable with Classic, that used to be a pain point for me. So I'm excited about that. Next is the student documents screen. I think of this as a workplace, and it's going to include a recycle bin for those of you who will have the permission to delete. You will have a recycle bin where you can also restore deleted documents. We'll talk about that and show that to you later. You can also customize that screen with different views from your dashboard. So I'm not here today to tell you how you should use the system, but I want you to know the possibilities. In my own practices, I have a different view on the dashboard than I do on the student documents, and I kind of know which one I want to use when. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on the My Student screen. This is where you will see the students who are on your caseload. You will also see the list of service providers that you assign to them, or that you assign to them. Let me just leave it there. Or they might have assigned themselves to those students. Ooh, that got a little confusing. And you're going to see some open and completed documents. So I want to make sure you kind of have this a little bit in your head. There's what I would think is a lot of repetition in the system. So you can choose what you would like to use or which screens will be best for you. The next thing we want to talk about is searching for students, because when you first come into the system, you are going to want to start searching. If you have a different security privilege, like an admin, and it looks like I have a few admins and a few others in our webinar today, you will be using the search immediately. If you are a case manager, you might be going to the My Students and searching there. So let's first start with the searches we have that are almost always on your screen. There are two places. One is in the left-hand side in that blue menu, and the other is in the upper right corner. The one in the left search is available to administrators. It is initially available to case managers, but it disappears. And it's going to disappear as soon as you have a caseload. When you have students assigned to you, this area below turns into a list of your students. All right, but it's still a good place to go. On the right side is the search box that you will always see. No matter what screen you're on, you're going to see this search students, which is very handy. And it is a smart search, so it really, you can use your name, you put a name in, a number in, and you're going to get a picture back as well. Now, let's see if I can show that in this system. We're going to go ahead and do it right now. You're going to notice that on the screen I am on, again, we have no students because we're in the dashboard. Over here on the right-hand side, I did a search earlier for Stephen Battle, so it's showing my recent search. I'm going to start searching for another student here. Notice that I am only going to need to put in, unless it wants to lag, 2 letters, first name and last name, the first 2 letters of either. You can see that I have quite a long list with SM in it, and I can certainly click on one of those students. I'm not going to do that just yet. We're going to talk about why in a second. That search is going to go away a little bit later on in this presentation, and you will see why. Let's go up here to the top though. I'll start with my Stephen Battle because he is going to help me out the most. All right, so I started putting in, and it's lagging just a little bit today. I started putting in BAT. I can certainly start to narrow it down by typing in more letters. And now I see my students with their picture and some of their information. I can also start to type in a number, and it will start to narrow it by the student number. That was not something we had in the old system, so that's kind of a nice thing as well. All right, let's go back to Stephen Battle. Oh my goodness, let's type the right way. All right, so here's Stephen Battle. Anytime that I click on a student's name, it doesn't matter if it's here or anywhere in the middle of the screen where you see a student's name. When I click on that student name, it is going to take us to the student profile. To the student profile. That was a lag in the Zoom video. That's right, that's what that was. Okay, so we see Stephen Battle, and we have 2 tabs, the personal tab and the contacts tab that comes from student information. So there is a lot of information here, but it is pulling from student information, and it is not anything you can change. It's just a place for you to look at the information. So as intervention specialists, you are going to want to go to this special education tab. So student profile, special education tab located on the right-hand side of the screen. And here's where we want to look at the fun stuff. So if I search for one student because I just want to look at their documents, this is the way I would do it, by searching here or clicking on their name when that name appears. I have a place to add a new document. Fantastic. I'm going to do that a little bit later. I have a place here to look at the most recent IEP summary. So let me click on that right now and notice what happens at the bottom of the screen. Now I see their IEP summary just for this one student. One of the changes in the more recent release that I'll be using later is that the name and all of the information appears here in the header, because I can print right from here. So just to take a moment to talk about printing, when you click on print preview, you will see the PDF version of whatever you are looking at, and you will be using your browser printer to print that. So we'll look at that a little bit later when we look at the actual form. So this is your typical IEP summary. Notice that it is, of course, going to be the summary for the most recently completed IEP. And let's say I don't really want to look at it anymore. I have a red X to close it. So I'm just going to close that out. And let me scroll down a little bit to show you what we have below. We have the open documents. We have completed documents. So I can click on any one of those document links to go right into the document. If I click on an open document, I will be going to the screen where I can continue to edit, make changes, look it over, complete it. So those would be the open documents. For documents that are already completed, you will rarely see an hourglass. The hourglass is in my system because it's not a real system. And it's also there, if you ever see it, it's because it's going through the document completion service. So it's a quick turnaround, but if you see that, it just might be a little bit lagging in the system. It's putting it in a special place, a vault that's saying these are completed documents. I can still see them. When I click on those links for the completed document, it will show me a PDF, which of course I can print, refer to, download as a PDF, whatever I need to do with that completed document. Okay, we are going to pop back over here, and I'm just going to refresh your memory or show you the things we looked at on the profile. Anytime you click on a student name, it is going to take you to the profile where you can click on the button to create a new document for that individual student. You can also look at the most recent IEP summary. And of course, we want to make sure you know that this is on the Special Education tab. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm just going to make sure. We'll see if anyone has questions, give you an opportunity to ask those questions. And I am going to end our polling. Looks like we have 43 people in here, which is fantastic. As you're thinking about questions you might have already, I'll share those results with you, so you can see who is here.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you repeat, please? You were talking about the funnel. I don't know if you call that a widget or what. And you said you were excited about it, that you can save that. It's in the upper right-hand corner on the other screen.
The filter, yeah, the filter and the gear to save your settings, yes.
Yes. Can you repeat what you said about that, please?
I'm going to actually demo that a little bit later because we're going to set it up. So I promise we'll do that. It's going to be able to be saved so that when you log out and you log back in, you will be able to, it'll stay the same, which is kind of nice. So I'll show you how that works, I promise. Okay. Just doing, thank you. Just doing a little intro as we go through. All right. So that was quite a bit of information already. And again, continue to put your questions into the chat. People are monitoring that. I'm not quite looking because I'm trying to focus on what I need to say to you, but feel free to look at that. I'll stop sharing these results of the survey. I just want to make sure I looked at them. Okay, we're in good shape. And thank you all for your patience as we go through this. All right, so we are going to talk about caseloads. And this is the screen that you will see for the My Students. So let's go into the system and actually start right away. I'm going to click here on My Students, and it is completely blank. Come on now. Okay, it is completely blank. Let me say a few words about this before we actually do what we need to do. If you have the opportunity like I do with the security I am using today, you will be able to self-assign. You will be able to find the students who are on your caseload and add them to this screen. For case managers, only a student can only have one case manager, but they can have additional service providers. Service providers can also self-assign if the district decides to allow that. Regardless of security, regardless of security, if you are a case manager, you can assign service providers to your students. We are going to do that as well. So I want you to think, as an intervention specialist, you're working with Jimmy. My husband's name happens to be Jim, so I'm going to keep using that name. You're working with Jimmy, and Jimmy has a person who is going to work with him on occupational therapy. You can give that person access to the student right here on this screen. So you will assign the service provider if that's the way your district decides to use the security. Just a little note about general education teachers. If they have access to special services like they did in Classic, to read only or even, well, we're going to just leave it there, to read only or to look at their documents, they will also see this screen and they will see the students in their classes that have documents. Now, I'm going to leave that alone because that could be a whole nother session. We can talk about that at another time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start assigning to our caseload. I'm going to click on the button that says Assign Students. And you'll notice that my name is in context. This is who I am logged in as. So you would see your name right up here at the top. Because I can self-assign, I'm going to click on the word Case Manager. It turns green. If I were assigning someone else, which I promise I will do, I have all these other options. Let's go ahead and click on my next button, which is Students. Now I'm going to start searching for students. So I'm going to start with my friend Stephen Battle. Oh, Stephen, where might you be? We're going to add Stephen. So I started to type in Stephen. You can see that I have a list of students that match that. And we're going to go ahead and click on the plus. And we are going to add a few more students to my caseload. So let me just, and I'm going to just do this quickly, but there, obviously you can type in the students that you need here on the screen. Let me do a couple that do not have forms. Just going to do a few more. And certainly you can scroll, you can put in the student's whole name, and you can go ahead and put those in. And we'll assign. Now look how this screen has changed. It went from being completely blank to having all these students listed. So let's take a look at what we see. You will notice that I no longer have a search option over here on the left-hand side because now I see my list of students. I can click on any of these student names and go to their student profile. I can click on any of the student names here and go to their student profile. So you'll see the column headings that I have. Let's stop for the related services for just a second. Let's say that I made a mistake and Macy Andrews is not supposed to be on my caseload. I picked her by mistake. My colleague is emailing me and saying, hey, why can't I find Macy Andrews? Well, I have her, so they will not be able to add her as a case manager. I'm going to go ahead and just remove myself. It's going to ask, are you sure? And I can remove. Let's let the screen blip. Come on, Macy. All right, Macy is gone over here and she will be gone on my list over here as well. So the red X allows me to remove myself from that student as a service provider or a case manager. You can see my list of documents as well as a status, a due date, and the progress of that document. Any of these are links that will take you to that either completed document or that open document. All right, so we've added students as a case manager, but now we want to do two more things. We're going to add ourselves as a service provider, not necessarily a case manager. So we're back to that scenario where my colleague, Mary Smiles, is the case manager, but I'm also going to be working with this student. And maybe I just need to say other. We're going to be sharing this student in a resource room and I need to have access to their documents as well. Whatever your practices are, that is totally up to you, of course. I'm going to click on students. Notice I've chosen other. I'm going to click on students and I am going to add a different student. Let's make sure. 2 letters, first or last name, which should bring up a list for us. There we go, Joan Farley. And we're going to assign. Now I can assign more to myself as other, so I can keep on going, but I just want to do one to demonstrate this. So now I'm a case manager for most of those students on my list. I am going to help out with Joan Farley, so I will be listed as other. Here she is on my list over here. And here she is right here with me listed as other. One more thing you may be doing, and that would be assigning other people to your students. So just the students on my caseload, I might need to assign a service provider in one of these areas. Here's how you do that. We're going to go ahead and delete my name from choose a provider. And I'm going to put in service provider because we have a bunch of people named service provider. That's their last name in our system. As soon as I start to type in, just like before, I see a list of people. I'll go ahead and choose my colleague, Emily. She's going to be the service provider for some of my students. Maybe she is the occupational therapist. I can click on the word students. And now I can say, oh, she is going to work with these students who are on my caseload. Now let that go through for a second. It's gonna, and I'm sorry that our demo site is so slow. I think our other site will be faster, which is what I'm gonna switch to in just a little bit. You can see that for the students that I selected, she is now listed as the occupational therapist. And on her My Students screen, she will see these students. She will see my name listed as the case manager. What she will not have is an X to get rid of me as the case manager, but she can remove herself as the service provider, just as I can remove her as a service provider. So just another note about service providers, if they have the appropriate security level, they can assign students to their own caseload. It will not interfere with who the case manager is. All right, I'm going to pause for a second, see if you have questions about creating a caseload. Okay, looking good. So we are going to move on to, oh, let me just say one more thing about this before we go away. If your district decides not to allow you to self-assign, then you'll still have this button here because the button's going to always allow you to add in a service provider, but you won't be able to make yourself the case manager. Instead, when you come into the system, you won't see a blank screen. You will see your students listed here and here if your administrator has already set up your caseload. So that's just a little side point depending on how you might have it set up. Okay, before I get into that, I'm going to just refresh my screen here because we are going to move into the system that has a different, it has the 1951 version of the program on it. Okay, sorry. We're going to go, how do I? So it's time. How am I going to create, update, complete my documents? I have a lot I want to talk about here, so I'm going to take a sip of water for just a second. And for those of you who have questions or need to look away from your screen for a moment, go for it. Okay, we are going to create documents. We are going to do that copy from document. So if I have I want to make a progress report, but I need to copy it from an IEP so I don't have to do all those goals all over again, we're going to do that. We will import from a document, which actually means copying the fields. So that was that copy task info in the old system. But let's say I have something on the ETR and I would like to copy that field into a field on my IEP. We're going to do that. We are going to talk about those district and personal banks. And we will discuss briefly how to complete a student document. Okay, so we are going to go here. There are many, many places where you will see a button that says add new document, and it's going to have a little plus sign in it. When you click on that, it's going to take you to this little window, which is so similar to the last system. You have a place to search for your students. You have a place to create or choose the document. Once you choose that document, it's then going to give you a list of the type of that document. You're of course going to fill in your normal areas or they will be pre-populated for you. The due date continues to be arbitrary and up to the user. So at this, let's just do it this way. The due date is arbitrary and up to the user, meaning you can choose a month from now if that's when it's actually due. You might choose 2 weeks from now. This is going to be up to you. And we can select another document to copy from. So let us go right into the system. I'm going to do this from this screen, but first I'm going to jump back over to that dashboard. We're going to look at this dashboard in much more detail, but I want you to see that now it is not blank because I have students. And we see the new document button here. We see a new document button or link here. And if I go to the student document screen, we see a new document button here. You almost can't lose it because it's everywhere. The one place it's not is on the My Student screen, but you can go ahead and click on a student. And when you click on that student's name, it takes you right back to that student profile. I'm going to click on the Special Education tab and click on New Document. I don't know if you noticed, but it did a little bit of flashing in the background because it's taking me to the student document screen. Don't worry about what's going on in the background. It's not important. What is important is what we see right here. Create new document. My student, Sanford Price, is in context because that's when I clicked on his name. If he were not in context, if I had clicked on another button in a different place, I can search for a student just like I've been doing. I'm going to click on the document drop down so you can see what's in here. So one thing I want to show you is that it doesn't show me an amended IEP or a review IEP, but it does break down those 504s here. So just take a second to kind of scan that list so you can kind of see what's here. We're going to stick with Individualized Education Plan, IEP. And you'll notice that the type now gives me the choice of initial, amended, review, or transfer. I am going to go with a review. I don't even know how old this child is. It doesn't really matter. You know they're all going to be similar except when we get to some of those dates and things we need to fill in. So we're going to go review. It populates the name for me, but certainly I can change this to whatever I'd like it to be for the name of the document if that helps me. School year is already populated. Grade level is populated. I'm going to put in a date. And we do have that calendar picker, so we are going to, just for the sake of what I need to do today, I'm just going to pick today. I can pick any date, but that is up to you. So the choice of due date is up to you. I'm not going to copy from a document here because this child doesn't have any, but you can see that option. And remember that mark as priority in the classic system. All that does is add a little exclamation mark so that you can keep track of the ones that are important to you. All right, we're going to go ahead and create. All right, and before we get into what you see here, we're going to go back to the slides because I need you to visualize this. One thing our developers have given us is multiple ways to navigate from section to section in any document. So let's just visualize what that looks like, and then I will show you it in the system. First of all, we have a place where we will see the section we are in as well as the subsection if that section has subsections. So I can click on either the cover page, this little down triangle, or this down triangle, and I will see the list of items in this document, the sections and subsections, and I can click on those to go back and forth, navigate through. My next favorite part, and what I'm going to be using today, is our back and next buttons down in the bottom, the lower left-hand corner. Now these are going to change the names as we go through them, but let's just call them back and next, and we can quickly go through the document using those. My least favorite way, this is just my opinion, my least favorite way is this number 4. It's a gray arrow that you can hardly see, and it's called the Quick Document menu, very much like that task menu we used to have in the classic system. You can also use that, and there's one other function there that I'm going to show you as well. So looking at this screen, I just wanted you to visualize how you are going to navigate. What are you going to do to navigate through a document? Okay, and before we get into that document, let's go there first. Okay, so we are on an overview screen. I can certainly go ahead and expand this if I would like to. So now I have a little more room on my screen. I don't know if that makes a difference to you or not. The overview screen has quite a bit more information. We have the general information about the student that is pulling from student information. We have the option here to change the name by clicking on the pencil. We can change the name of this document. We can mark it as a priority right here if we would like to. I'm going to skip a little bit here. We're going to go to the print preview is a great thing to look at as you're going from section to section. We're going to do that quite a bit. And more importantly is this additional forms on this screen. On the overview screen, if I click on additional forms, I will find those additional forms that aren't typically part of the IEP. So I always tell people you really want to make sure you remember where the additional forms are. If you're an ETR person, there are tons of optional forms available for the ETR. So just remember that you can find the additional forms button on the overview screen. Adding would just be a matter of clicking and clicking on add. I'm going to cancel that. If you have the ability to delete, you have a delete button here. We'll get to that a little bit later. And I'm going to talk about the DCF much later. Okay, so this is just the overview, and you're going to see on the the right-hand side, we have things like edit and start. Those statuses are going to change as we start to complete things in the IEP. So I'm going to click on the cover page and just get started. Okay, I need to prep you a little bit. So all of my educators out there, you know it's good to give a little bit of a warning or a pre-activity to let you know what's coming up. Here is my checklist. Boy, that's a lot of words on that screen. It's my checklist so that I remember to tell you everything, but it's also a good checklist for you for the dynamic features or the features that you kind of need to remember. So there are yes, no questions that are going to have a great impact, that sounds kind of huge, an impact on your IEP. If I want to see things like the alternate assessments criteria, I need to check that off and that form is going to appear. If my students are visually blind and I say that, then I'm going to have a form that appears. So how you answer some of these questions is going to make a difference for what appears in the IEP, additional sections. We're going to talk about importing contacts, which is a little different from the previous system, but has, you know, that same idea of I'm pulling contacts in from student information. I don't know if you recall, but I used to spend a lot of time talking about Section 6 and measurable annual goals. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on that again today. We'll talk about adding and deleting rows. We no longer have a trash can. We'll talk about how to delete those roles. And we will talk about that new form, the preschool to kindergarten transition IEP for Section 11, the least restrictive environment. And then we'll go into that ETR and that 504 very quickly to show you some differences there. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the system. I know that's a lot, but I just wanted you to think about some of the things I want to highlight for you. All right, so we were saying that we can certainly go and click on either the cover page, which is the section, or the subsection, and we can highlight or click on any of these to go to that section quickly. We are also going to use our next and back button down here. So on the cover page, there are a few yes and no questions that are extremely important. If I check on yes for is the child in preschool, that is going to change my Section 11 least restrictive environment, and it's going to add this highlighted area for that transition. Okay, if I go back to my cover page and I say no, and go back to least restrictive environment, that highlighted area is gone. Okay, so we're going to let that go for right now. Just keep that in mind. That's how you're going to see it. I'm going to stick with yes because we're going to talk about that when we get there. Next, I have 14-year-old and 14-year-old. These two questions, if I say yes to either of these questions, then Section 5, the post-secondary transition, appears. If I say no to both of those questions, we no longer have Section 5, the post-secondary section. All right, questions about those? Okay, looking good. Now, this is only a subsection of the cover page, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going because now we want to talk about contacts. Doesn't matter which form you're on. When you get to parent guardian information and contacts, it's going to look the same way. I have a parent already populated here because they are the primary contact. Jennifer Price is the primary contact in student information, so she is on my screen. I want to add more contacts. I want to change the order of how they will print. Let's go ahead and click on Modify Contacts, the blue button. You'll see that Jennifer Price, since she is the primary, has a star by her. We are on her tab. So I would like to add a new contact. I'll click on New Contact. I will click on Import Contacts. And now I have a screen or a window that allows me to see who is in the contacts and student information. So let me go ahead and choose David as my next contact. I can't change any of this, but I might have some choices that are being pulled from student information. If there are any changes that need to be made to this, you need to talk to your student information person and follow the guidelines of your district. So this pulls from student information. I'll click on Import, and now I have two contacts. I have Jennifer and I have David. Let's do that one more time. New contact, everything empties out down here. Click on Import Contact, choose another person, click on Import, and now I have three. There is something interesting here, which are these three little dots. So I want you to notice that whatever screen or tab I am in, it has a dark blue line under it. So I can click on David Price, and now I see his information. Jennifer, I see her information. But let's look at those three dots next to any of their names. Let me click back on David, click on the three dots, and look at the choices you now have. Make copy, rename, move left, move right, and delete. So I made a mistake. I really don't want Angela Vaughn to be here. Let's go ahead and delete her. Yep, we're going to delete her. Oh, sorry, I deleted the wrong one. Let's add him back. We'll import. We'll put David in. All right, now let's go to Angela and delete her. Okay, so here's David, and maybe I want David to be the first one listed. So before I do that, let me just go here. Many times you are going to want to look at the print preview to just see how it looks. It's as simple as clicking on print preview, and it will take you to the section you are in. So we're only on the cover page, so of course we only see the cover page. Here's Jennifer, here's David. I'm going to exit that preview. I will use my three dots to move David to the left. I will click on my print preview again, and we see that David is first and Jennifer is second. Let's exit that preview. So you're going to see these tabs and these three dots on the goal page, on things like the prior written notice, anywhere where you can have more than one of something, more than one goal, more than one, I think even a parent invitation, we got to check that. Anywhere you can have more than one, this is how it will work. You can use it to make a copy, rename, move it left, move it right, or delete it. Okay, we're going to go on to the meeting information. And of course, we're going to put in a date because this is very important to EMIS. I realize that my dates are not going to make a lot of sense, but don't worry about it. We're putting that meeting date in. And maybe nope, I got to keep going. IEP timeline. We are going to skip ETRs. Don't tell anyone that I did that. Instead, we're going to quickly put in an effective date. Okay, so we've got our end date and our effective date. I'm not going to worry about anything else there, but I'm going to scroll down to this additional information. Every section has an area for additional information. That additional information will be available through all the subsections. So you saw what I typed there. If I go back to child's information and scroll down, it's the same thing. If I go to the IEP timelines, it's the same information. If I go to my print preview, I see the information I have completed. And if I scroll down ever so slightly, that additional information appears as a page after the section. And so you can put anything you want to in that field and it will appear as a separate page after that section. Okay, I'm still on the cover page, and there is quite a few more sections I need to fill out. But whenever I am ready, I can mark this section as completed. If I continue to the next section, you're going to see that it is grayed out and I cannot make a change here. However, if I said, "Ooh, I really need to add amendments, I need to change this," then I can simply say, let me not complete it, let me undo this, and I can continue to type or make changes. Now, for the sake of what we're doing, I'm going to go ahead and mark it as completed. Okay, that showed you some of the yes and no features. That got you through some of the areas that you would be filling in. Let's go into, I'm going to skip 1 and go to 2. Okay, here is where that visually, is the child blind or visually impaired? I want you to see that I have nothing in here yet, but by the magic of choosing yes, I now see section 16, children with visual impairment. So that is how you get that form for section 2. I'm going to actually say no here, and I'll mark that section as completed as well. Okay, now I was skipping around, so I am going to, let's see, we're not too worried about the profile, but let me just show it to you. You can see that there's an area for you to type in. We're going to talk about banks in another area, but that's what this is going to start to show you. We'll get to banks, I promise. And I'm going to go all the way to, I believe we want to go to section 6. Okay. So section 6 is our measurable annual goals. This section can be a little tricky, so we're going to spend a little more time on it, but hopefully looking at the contacts has helped you to see how this might work. We are on a new goal, so I'm going to quickly type in goal number 1, and I will put math. And you'll see that that says goal, but it doesn't give me a number. I have 2 choices. I can either double click and start to type in here what I want it to be, or I can click on my 3 dots and there's a place to rename it so that I can add that name. All right, so my practice is to name them as soon as possible. You can decide when you want to name them, but let's keep going. Let me add another goal, and you'll see that that goal 1 went away, but it looks really similar. So I'm going to pick 2. I'm going to call this reading. And then I am going to come up here and either double click or click the 3 dots and type in. Okay, so now we have 2. I can also, let's say well, let's do it first. I'm going to stick with number 1. Okay, so as I'm going back and forth, I need to really make sure I'm on the right goal with that dark blue line. So we're going to go into the PLOP, the present level of academic achievement. If I click in this box, you're going to see things you've already seen, but I didn't talk about them yet. So one is the rich text editor, and you are used to this from the classic system or other programs that you have used. So you can certainly adjust what you want to for your text. But more importantly than that is this information down here. And if I hover over these 2 circles, you're going to see that one says user bank items are available. That would be my personal banks. And you're going to see that my district has also included a district bank. Now, we had a question very early on before we started about banks coming over in the migration. Yes, banks are coming over in the migration, so you do not have to recreate them. But let's start with that. You already have banks and you want to copy banks from what you already have. So we'll click on the copy from. My screen changes slightly because it's now going to my banks area where I have a tab for personal and I have a tab for district. If I want to insert this right here, I can click on insert. If I decide I'd like to copy it and paste it somewhere else on the form, I can certainly do that. And because these are my personal banks, I can also edit the bank. Now we're going to create one a little bit later, but I wanted you to see it here. If I want to use a district bank, I'm going to click on the word district. I see that this is what the district bank looks like. So your district may say, we want to use the district bank for directions, guidance, consistency, as a time saver. So whatever they put in, I just wanted that there as a understanding for how you might use district banks. I'm going to go ahead and click on insert, and now we have it here. Now, I'm still on the banks screen, even though I'm in that field on the document. I need to click on my X up here. And now I see everything that I put in. So imagine how that might save you time if you have certain banks that you want, or you're typing similar things over and over again. Can I go ahead and make adjustments here or add to this? Absolutely. Okay. All right, so we have talked a little bit about banks, but let's do one more thing with banks. Maybe in my measurable annual goal, I want to type something in. Have you noticed that I'm terrible at typing and talking at the same time? Okay, so we've typed something in and we've typed a whole bunch of information, and you know it's a goal that you're going to use more than once. You might be using it with a different student, you might be tweaking it for this student, but you want to create a bank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to make my life easier. Instead of creating it from scratch, I'm going to highlight it here. I'm going to click on create, and you'll see that it's already in here. The only thing I need to do is simply type a name up here so that I can refer to it later, and click on create. Now we're going to X out of the goals. We're going to come back to that field because I had a district bank here. I have my user bank, and it's as simple as that. Just simply highlighting the text and creating, or I can create it from scratch. Now, I'm going to go up to my web help again, because remember I said there's so much in here, and I know I'm talking a lot. What time are we? We are at 10:26. Okay, we're good. If you scroll down to the case manager area, you will see a video on creating and inserting user banks, and also on using that pre-selected text. So those are two real simple videos, good videos to watch. And then we also have an instructional sheet. So if you want more information on banks, or if you want to walk through it step by step, you will see that there. Okay, let me go back in. We're going to go down to our table, because here we have the option for objectives or benchmarks. Simple difference is just date of mastery for benchmarks. Objectives do not. And I will go ahead and type in an objective. Click out of, oh, you'll see that the number automatically appears, 1.1, and maybe this is going to be my objective, 1.2. I'm going to go in here and put 1.1 because that's going to be important a little bit later. All right, and we'll do one more. Okay, so I've just, by simply typing in the first row of any table, the system will automatically add a row for you. This row, the row that says, let me click out of here so you can see it. The row that says new is not going to print. In fact, if we go to the print preview, watch my screen carefully, because as you look at the print preview, it's going to do a little bit of a blip. I'm not going to start at the top with the cover page. It should blip, boom, now I'm on the measurable annual goals. So whatever section you're in when you click on print preview, that is the section you will see in the print preview. Just give it a second to blip. All right, we're going to scroll down. You can see my first objective, my second objective, and my third objective, but not that empty row. So an empty row is never going to show up on your IEP in any table. I'm going to go back down here, because now you're going to say to me, well, where's the trash can to delete objective 3? I don't want that anymore. To delete a row, you're simply going to backspace it out, and that row will disappear. Okay, so adding rows is going to happen automatically. Deleting rows is just a matter of you deleting the information in that row. Okay, we're going to come back up here, and just as a handy dandy little idea, if you click on the 3 dots, you can make a copy of this entire goal, because maybe you typed in some things and you don't want to have to redo all of it. When you do that, notice that I am on my goal 1 math with my dark blue line. If I want to make changes to this one, the copy, I need to click on it. It's going to look exactly the same until I start to change things. I'm going to make this a 3, and then I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to change that name, goal 3. Okay, just ignore all my reading, math, etc. I just want to show you this. So I've made my 3 goals. I don't like the order they're in at all. So of course I can say, let's move this right. Let's move this right. There we go. So now we have them in the order that they will print. Now, I know that that can get a little overwhelming because you're thinking, okay, well, I got to remember to put the number there. I've got to remember to put the number in the name of the tab. You know, just finding the process for you. I tend to name my goals immediately as I am making them, but knowing that you can change the order and then, of course, change the name if you need to is going to help out tremendously. So don't forget those 3 dots. There's some nice information there or nice options for you to move them around. All right, let's pretend that we have completed that entire measurable annual goals section. Now I'm going to come up here again because, well, certainly we can go to the bottom and use our back and next button. We are going to, I'll show you these sections. We're not going to worry too much. Specially designed services. Ooh, I forgot. This is an important area. Specially designed services has multiple subsections. So we start with the specially designed instruction, which has a drop down for speech and language services. It's very important that you put the dates in down here. That has to do with the reporting that happens. So don't forget to put dates in. Obviously, there are other things that you would be filling in. I'm going to go ahead to the next subsection, which is related services. I'm still in section 7, but now I see related services. I'm going to click on the down arrow and I can choose any of these services. And of course, start to fill in my information. I'm going to fill in 2 here because I'll show you a little bit later how that works with your DCF, your data collection form. Okay, so we filled in some services. Again, you would want to fill in dates. We can continue through all of the tables. Tables work the same way here. I put in the first service, it gave me another row, it gave me another blank row. So if I didn't want to have this row, I would have to go ahead and take that service away. Let me put it back in there. Okay, so we can continue to look at services and the tables. They work the same way, and you would just add or delete those rows. I'm gonna mark that as completed too. Okay, that got us through 7. 8 is just transportation. We're gonna just peek at that. Non-academic services, of course, you are familiar. Remember, you could have banks here as well. And general factors, the yeses and the nos. These are, of course, more about things that you've taken into consideration. So no dynamic functionality here. We talked about least restrictive. Now I know my child's in 3rd grade, so this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. At the moment, let me back up a second. So ODE added this transition from preschool to kindergarten, and we have it in our system, but there have been many, many questions across the state of Ohio for ODE about reporting. So at this time, I just want you to see what happens here. If I check this box, which remember, we only have this option because we said yes on the cover page to the first question. If I check this box, I do get 2 areas for preschool and for school age, and I can fill those out as I need to. Okay, I'm going to leave that there because we're going to do one more thing with that. Okay, let's go into my next favorite section, which is the statewide and district testing. There are a few things you need to know here. Here we are back to those yes/no questions. If I say yes to the child is participating in the alternate assessment, I want you to know that you no longer have to go outside the system to get to this area. Okay, remember we used to have to click on this, get the PDF, fill it out, put it in as an attachment, et cetera, et cetera. Forget that. In fact, I wish this wasn't even here, because as soon as I say yes, that form appears right down here at the bottom. Okay, so it is now part of the IEP. It looks like this, and of course you would fill it out as you need to. Let me go back to statewide testing. Okay, there is another option here if you say yes to that, and that would be the select test type of paper, online, or supplemental. I'll go ahead and click on paper, and sometimes you're going to see that there's a clear button in case you didn't really mean to fill out that question. So you will see that in a lot of different areas, that clear button. Sometimes that's related to the yes and no questions, and people didn't actually want to answer those. One more point about this area, and you are coming in at a time, again, when we are still working on enhancements, making sure that the system is going to do what it needs to do for you in the future. And this is one of those. We had a user way back in the fall ask that this be included on the IEP. At this time, this is really just a place to store it. So you won't see it on the IEP. It doesn't print out on the print preview on the actual PDF. And there's no report at this time for pulling this out of the system, but it's a good thing to get in the habit of doing it because that will be something we'll see in the future. So just another option if you are interested, and you can certainly not fill it out or you can fill it out. I'm gonna go down to the bottom. District and statewide tests. We're gonna click on yes, that this child will have accessibility or accommodations. And this is the button that lags. Oh, there we go, we got it, okay. So we're gonna scroll down. I am one of those people that always forgets that district is first. That's how ODE's form is, that's how our system is. So district testing is first. I'm gonna skip that and go down to the statewide testing. Looks to me almost exactly like the old system, the classic system. It just has an updated, feel to it. So I can click on the test. I can choose it from the drop down, and I can start to type in accommodations, or I could go ahead and see what I have as my personal bank, which is up here at the top. We will insert, we will close it, scroll down, and we will see that that is there. So banks are available for accommodations. I know I've seen a lot of schools use banks for accommodations, but certainly you can also type that in using that rich text editor as you need to. Okay, so we've filled in one of these. You'll see there are many others that you can choose from for the accommodations. Okay, I'm going to go to the exemptions. So that was 12. Let's go to section 13 and exemptions. For the exemptions, you have 3 areas. So it is important that you realize you have 3 subsections. Certainly for the 3rd grade reading guarantee, if I choose applicable, there's other information I need to fill out. If I go to the graduation test, and you'll notice I'm in graduation test, if I click applicable, I do want to make sure that I fill out this yes/no question because that has to do with reporting as well. And you will see that I can say yes, and I can choose the category where this student will have an exemption, whatever that title of that course might be, and whatever that justification is. Okay, so now we have exemptions, and of course we do have the other assessments, which is after the statewide. So keeping in mind where you are is nice because you have these headings up here at the top. Okay, so at this time, I am going to skip all the way down to the special education. Well, you know what? Because we're mostly intervention specialists, I'm going to keep on going here just a little bit. We will go to signatures. Actually, let me back up and meeting participants just so you can see what this looks like. We certainly have the information that you need to fill in here as well. Notice that it is pulling the effective date from the cover page, so you see that that is already filled in and not editable. That gray that you see on my screen means you can't edit it. You would do that on the cover page if you need to. We will go on to the signatures. And of course, we would say something like, I give consent. So if you were going to print this out, and obviously at this time, no one is seeing people face to face, but let's say it's the new school year, you're printing this out, you do want to have something selected here, or you could clear it, and you might want to possibly put in, let's see, we'll say, let's just assume you might be doing this, because that's when you can mark it as complete. So let me clear it. You'll see that this is not able to be marked as completed because I've done nothing here. I believe if I even put a space here, nope, can't do it there either. Okay, you're going to want to put something on this screen and then you can complete it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say I give consent, and then I can mark it as complete, and I could print it out. Now, we are taking liberties in assuming that you might be using electronic signatures. Electronic signatures are a district decision and a district setting. If you choose to use the electronic signatures, they are not the kind of electronic signature where you can send it via email. That's not the way the system works. I'm going to run through it as if you were meeting the person, they were coming in to sign it, and you might be using a tablet. You might even be using your mouse like I am using my mouse right now. So you get the whole, I have to sign my life away to say, yes, I want to sign. I agree with all of this. You get this area where you can sign as if you were at Target filling out your signature, and we can confirm. Two things happen. You get a signature, and you also get the date populated here. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second because I want to make sure. I'm going to ask my participants. Okay, I see there's some information there about signatures, so we're good to go. Again, we don't have the ability for you to take this and send it to in an email and have them sign it electronically without being in front of you. There is some information from ODE that is allowing you to do many different things to address that, even so far as taking a picture of it and adding that as an attachment if you needed to in this time of being quarantined and being in isolation. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go. There are some really good suggestions in the chat. I paused to read them. Those are some good things, and please keep that conversation going. You are all professionals, and you're certainly able to help each other, which is fantastic. All right, I am going to just take a quick peek at my other areas. So we said before that there's an area for prior written notice, and you'll see that there's an option to not just add an attachment, but also to create more than one written notice. Works that way, we said, with goals and with contacts to create new tabs. We've got the parent invitation, also the ability to have more than one and use those tabs to reorder them or to have them in here. We're going to go to the page that is very important, and that is the special education events page, because this has to do with the dates and information that you need to report to EMIS. So a couple things here, and I'm probably going to sound like I'm talking in circles, but I just need to get this out to you. If you were doing a regular IEP that did not have the preschool information, the transition, you would only see the information listed here. You wouldn't have two columns, you would have one column. And so let's talk about your regular IEPs. This is the screen where you choose your outcome ID, you choose your non-compliance ID, you may be choosing the secondary planning, and that will be fillable. It'll be a drop-down if that child is of age to have that secondary planning. I'm with a third grader, so he does not have that. And then, of course, the test type. So you're filling in this information. Right now, we set it up to show the preschool information as well. That will be changing based on what ODE is telling us. So I'm going to ignore that for right now because it's really not important to most of us. LACA will give you guidance on that as that changes. All right, we're going to just scroll down a little bit, and you'll see that there are other important dates that are reported. If these pertain to the student you are working with, then you would be filling in those dates as well. It's really important that you pay attention to that special education events screen to make sure that you're showing everything that is reported to the state for funding and for legal purposes. Okay. We are going to actually go to, oh, let me point out this too. Often, I believe, might be school psychologists, might be guidance counselors, it might be you as intervention specialist. People often ask, well, what about attachments for the whole entire document? And that is available here. It was the very last thing that you see, and you can add attachments to your IEP or whatever form you're using that will be part of the whole document, and they will be printed at the very end of that document in that print preview. I'm going to go all the way back to the overview. Sounds so exciting, doesn't it? All right, so we're back at the overview, and we can see that I have completed 20% because as I scroll down, you will see that I have marked some of them completed, some of them have been started, some of them have not been started, some of them have been edited. So I would continue to go through and complete the information as I need to. At the top though, we're going to jump back to that DCF. So before you complete the entire document that you are working on, I always advise people to go to this View DCF, which will be in the 19.5 version when that is put on your system. So I was using a different version when I was in 19.4, but now we're in 19.5. If I click on that DCF, that data collection form, I get this piece of paper, this screen, that allows me to spot check what have I filled in. Now, some districts require that this is printed out and handed to the EMIS coordinator so they can put the information into student information. Some districts just ask people to look at it to make sure they filled in information correctly. In filling the information correctly, this is going to help out your EMIS coordinator because they won't have to hand enter the information. It can be extracted from the new SPS into student information. So, not a big deal. Talk to your coordinators, make sure you, maybe share this with them, ask them if everything looks good. We're going to point out in the very first section where it says RIEP, I have all of the important things filled out. Everything is here, it's not blank. If one of these were blank, I would want to go back in and fill them out. So remember, we did this on the special education events screen. We did the event date on the cover page, as well as that start and end date. You will see other dates if they apply, and you'll see what's reportable and what's not. Only the ones that are white are reportable. Here's the next section I want to talk about, and that is the services section. I always skim this, and you'll probably have way more services than I have listed here. I skim this to make sure I do have my start and end date. So obviously I don't. I would want to go back in and check that out, make sure I have it accurately in there. Some more fields would be the disability category and the disability start date, which comes from the ETR. And of course, we have the secondary planning would need to be filled in if this child is of age. The required test type is filled in, and my exemptions are filled in. So to me, this is a spot check. Did I get everything that I needed to? Could I print it? Absolutely. Do I need to? No, but I would want to check this before I finish completing my entire document. Now, I'm not going to actually complete this one today because it would take too long and you would be really bored if you're not bored already. So hopefully we're all awake out there. I could go through and mark everything completed, and once this says 100% up here, then I will have a button that says complete the entire document. Actually, it just says mark as completed, and it would be in reference, it would be on this overview screen. The overview screen is where you will mark as completed. Okay, we're still going to look at an ETR and a 504, but before we do that, I'm just going to make sure you see this is what it would look like to mark as completed for each screen, as we just said. And then we've been talking about where that print preview is, so you know where that is as well. We are getting near the end. I bet you can't wait. But let's do a couple more things, and I'm sure I'm going to forget something. Oh, I know. My fellow, I don't know who is online still with me from my office. We're going to go back into measurable annual goals. If you go into measurable annual goals, one of my coworkers, maybe you can log in and for Sanford Price in our preview environment. And I'll leave that there for a second, see if someone can do that for me. Why? Because I want to, oh, thank you. I want to show you the collaboration. So we talked a little bit about collaboration. For those of you who remember the old system, there was that whole, you could lock it, but you really couldn't tell. And, sometimes people might have, you really couldn't work together. So now you can actually work together. I'm going to have my friend here. You'll see that I am Patricia Intervention, but my person who's in with me is Michael Masters. So Michael, if you could go ahead and click in any of those fields. It's not quite googly, but it's pretty close. So if you have ever shared a document or a spreadsheet in Google, you're going to see that she is here. She has locked this and I cannot do anything with it. I can continue to type anywhere else on this form where she is not working, and vice versa. She cannot work in this area because on her screen, sorry, it's Michael, on his screen, it shows it is locked. Once she gets out of that, I will be able to go into it. So the ability to share and work on the same document at the same time is here. She's going to stay on this screen, but I'm going to go to a different goal. I can even go to a different section. I can still see that she is in here working with me. And you could have more than one collaborator. I don't think it's been determined how many collaborators. Let's not go crazy, people. Let's just do 1 or 2 working together. And you can see, oh, there we go. There goes another one. We can certainly see that we have people working with us. Okay. Questions about collaboration? All right, we're looking good. Let me go back to my overview, and I am going to talk again about we had the banks, which I think are quite usable, but we want to talk about the copy from another document. So I will go back to, let's just go to the cover page. Okay, great. So we're going to uncomplete this. And we might just come down here to it. No, you know what? I'll go to the other section. Here we are in other information. Okay. So let's say that I know there is information on a different document. I didn't want to copy the whole document to create my new document, but I do want to get a field and I want to put it here. So I probably used the wrong child, but we'll show you anyway. Remember that quick document menu? If I click on the gray arrow, I can see the list of the documents, and I can even see my green check marks for the ones that have been completed. So that's one thing you can do here. You can also click on any of these to go to that section. But there's a little hidden gem here. The hidden gem is up at the top where it says import from document. Now don't blink because this gets a little strange. I'm going to click on it. It's going to say select a document, so I can select from the one I'm actually working on, but it would have a list of all the documents available. I click on the document I'd like to look at. I can find a section, like let's go to future. Do we have anything in future planning? We did not. And I can then select the field. And the difference here, so with banks, I was inserting. With here, I can preview what was in there. Oh, thank you so much for putting something in. Or I can go ahead and copy that information, and I would have to do Control-V to paste that information. This used to be called Copy Task Info, where I could copy from one field on the same document or on any document that's in the system that is available to me, and I could paste it into, take from one field and paste it into a different field. Okay. Looking good on that part because I almost forgot to talk about it. And so we are going to go back to my students. Let's see. Okay, I am going to go back to the My Students screen. And I know we didn't have a ton of people who do ETRs, but we're going to look at that just quickly, because the thing about the ETRs, we're going to click on an ETR that's already been created, and this one is not complete, so that's good. If we go to cover page, okay, if we go here to the cover page and the child's information, oh, here we go. The section on the ETR called Planning Form has an option for school age or preschool. And you're choosing that, in choosing one of those, it's going to change your evaluation planning form. So right now I have preschool chosen, and my planning form looks like this. I hope it looks familiar to those of you who do ETRs. There it is, that's for the preschool. And if I go back to my cover page, sorry, the planning form area of the cover page, and click school age, my planning form looks a little bit different. That's that switching, that dynamic functionality for the ETR. All right, now I'm going to go back to my web help because I wanted to show you, we have a document that goes over the dynamic form functionality. We have another one here and another one here. So 3 instructional sheets, as well as a video on that IEP dynamic form functionality. So even if you didn't catch everything right now, you can always refer to those resources when you need to. 504s. Let's go to my students again. And briefly, I'm going to use Lori Abbott this time. We're going to go ahead and create a 504 for her, just a 504 plan. Remember, all the 504s are listed here. And all I really want to do is show you one little area. It's not a big deal. I could, of course, copy if I needed to, but let's create this. The only thing I want to show you here, just to kind of make it hit home, is on the signatures screen. There is a place, it's kind of below here, where it says I give permission. That's important for reporting to EMIS. So as long as I have that there and I fill in a date, remember we're on the 504s just briefly, I fill in a date on my meeting. I'm going to go back to my overview and click on that DCF again. I just wanted to show you that this DCF looks different because it's for a 504. And I had the plan for yes and the start date available here because I said yes on that signature screen. Whew. Okay, I'm going to take another sip of water. You take a break looking away from your screen for a moment. My dog is starting to get restless in the background here, so hopefully you're not hearing her doing too much. Let's see if you have any questions and how we're doing. I do see a question about the electronic signature. You don't have, oh good, Lauren has answered that, so I'm gonna let that go. Any other questions or concerns? I know that was a ton and we're nearing the end, but stick with me, half hour more. Okay, we're looking okay. Let's talk about those two screens that I keep avoiding. And I only was avoiding them because I wanted you to think about your process starting with the beginning of the school year. You start by making your caseload, and then you would start making documents. Now, you're going to want to use the dashboard and the student documents screen to organize yourself and to, from day to day, to access those documents. So with the dashboard, we're going to talk about that. Here's a full dashboard, but we're going to go through each of those items in just a second. You're going to notice that there are widgets up at the top. We'll talk about those, and we will talk extensively about the filter and the settings that you can save. We are also going to compare that. Now just kind of take a look at your screen. That's the dashboard. We're going to compare and contrast that to our student documents screen. Main difference you see here is that there are no widgets across the top, but you do have a recycle bin. So I'm going to say this now, and I have to look at my notes to make sure I say it correctly. The recycle bin, I'm sorry, let's do this. The delete button is considered a soft delete. When you click that delete button for an entire document, it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete it? And you're going to say yes. And when you do that, it's going to appear in your recycle bin where it can be brought back to life. Deleted documents were originally thought to be in there for 30 days. That was the original plan. That has not actually been instated yet. So 30 days was the thinking. We had quite a few people in trainings in the fall say, why not keep it there for the entire school year in the recycle bin? Currently, that is the way it works. It will be there for the entire school year. I am not sure if this will be changed or not. So stay in touch with LACA, look at the release notes, make sure you pay attention to how long documents will be in the recycle bin. Okay, that was my sort of small print to warn everybody about that. Let's go back into the system. I'm gonna exit my preview and we're gonna go to the dashboard. My dashboard is no longer blank because I have students. So now I can see my list of students with their documents based on the filters that I have set up here. Let me go ahead and clear all my filters and you'll notice that now I have a whole lot more going on with my list of documents. We're going to start at the very, very top. The widget we have here is the upcoming due dates. This is a nice widget for you because you might say, oh my gosh, I really need to check at my overdues. they're not really overdue unless you put the real date in for the due date. So your practices, it's going to be based on how you want to put that due date in. If I click on the overdue, I will see my 13 documents that are overdue, and I can start looking at those. I can click on my 3 or whatever number might be in these areas for what's upcoming, what's due. If I want to quickly look at all documents for my students on my caseload, I can click on View All Documents. For those of you who are not administrators, and that's who we're talking to today, the caseload due date widget is really not important to you. This is more for administrators, and it's the ability for them to look at documents in groups by caseload. So I'm going to click on here because I didn't actually do that earlier. They'll see something that looks like this. I can only see my caseload, so there's my 3 that are due. It says 1 up here because I'm looking at 1 case manager. Okay, we're going to go back here because that, I would not even touch this if I were an intervention specialist. Just ignore it. You'll see the last 3 documents that you recently created. I always forget this is here, but it's such a handy tool because I don't have to go and search for a student. I don't have to figure out how to find them down here. I can look at the last 3 that I created, or I can create a new document from right here. Most of you will not be dealing with reports. If I click on this button to go to more reports, it's going to take me to the Analytics Hub in Student Information. So that is not really applicable to most of us as intervention specialists. Let's move down to the next section. The checkbox on this screen is really only useful if you wanted to mark more students as priority. So it just adds that lovely little exclamation mark, and you'll notice that it is showing me that it's saving up here. I can click on New Document, just like we said before. I can also reorder any of these headings by clicking on them. So we're just doing the sort order. If I want to change what I see here, I'm going to go ahead and click on the gear over here right now. And you can see all the options that I have. Maybe I don't really need to see case manager. Sometimes I like to see that if I'm working as a service provider, but maybe I don't need that column to show up. I don't really worry about date of birth because I have the grade level. You can turn these on or off, and you can see that my screen is changing as I am doing that. So this is something that once you set it, it is saved until you come back in and change it again. Let me say that one more time. It comes from the gear. I can set up my dashboard preferences. It is saved for each time. I mean, you do it once, and it will be that way until you change it again. Huge change from the classic system. Okay, we're going to close this for a second. I've put them in order of alphabetical order by student, and now I want to do a little bit more with filters. So right now I have nothing filtered. I'm seeing all. I'm seeing completed. I'm seeing open, ETRs, IEPs, everything that I have for my students. When I click on the filter, I have these options on the dashboard. Is this where I only want to see IEPs? Absolutely. This is going to be my IEP screen. Is this where I would like to only see open? Sure, I'm going to change it to open. I can also filter by the due date. Now I'm going to leave that as all. This is what I want to see every time I come in. This is what I'd like to see. It will obviously change once, if something's completed, then it would no longer appear on the screen because I'm filtered for open. So we've changed our filters. We've organized our sort. If we come over here to that gear again, there are 2 things that I'm going to click on. And watch what happens because it's going to go away. I get a check mark. I get a check mark. I have now saved my filters and my sorting. And if that's what I always want it to be, fantastic. Okay, let's just demo this again. I come over here and I say, oh, nope, I'd like to view all documents right now today. Great, that's fantastic. And I say, oh, it's another day. I'm logging in another time. I come back to logging in and I'm going to my dashboard. And let it load up again. Look at that, it changed. So it's dynamic. I can change it however I want during my session, but for my next session, it's going to go back to the settings that I had saved based on the gear over here. If I change my sort order or my filters and I want to save them, I do have to come in and check these off again. All right, that was a lot. Questions about setting up your dashboard the way you want it to be? You might say to yourself, I don't really like the look of that. That dashboard's kind of weird. So the thing I'd say to you is you're still going to open up to this screen. It's going to be the first thing you see, regardless of what your security level is, regardless of your role. You can, of course, go to the Student Documents screen, which we said looks similar but different. Options that you have here are still to use the checkboxes. But if I use the checkboxes here, I have an option of mark as priority, or I have an option to delete. So I'm going to go ahead and delete Neil. Oh, do I really want to? Yes, I do. I'm going to delete Neil's 1920 RIP, and that is an open one. I saw there was some conversation about open versus completed. Thank you. So it is an open one. I'm going to click on the word delete. It's gone. Neil's gone. But if I click on my recycle bin tab, there's Neil right there. It tells me who deleted it and when. So look at my Paul Masters deleted one of the things that I had for Lori Abbott a while ago. I can bring these back, as we said, by clicking on that restore button. And you'll see that the restore was successful. All right, so we've got the recycle bin and the delete. You can change what you want to be on this screen the same way we did the other screen. Here, though, I have an option for an event date. So this is a little bit different. The event date is here. You'll see it in the column over here, which some of mine don't have event dates, apparently. I could still say I'd like to see the progress. Maybe I don't really care about priority because I never liked that little exclamation mark ever before anyway. And I've changed some of these things. Again, I can still change my sorting and my filters and save those as well. I can make this different from my dashboard, and then I will have that opportunity to use either whatever my workflow is. There's one more thing on this screen, and that is the 3 dots. 3 dots again. Anytime you see 3 dots, sometimes known as the snowman for those of us who may have taught elementary school or still teach elementary school. The ellipsis for those of us who might be teaching older students. When I click on those 3 dots, I have options to open the document, to look at the DCF tool, or to delete it. This is a great place to look at DCF for completed tasks. So any completed task, this is where you can see that DCF, that data collection form. Okay, now I know there are 2 things that just popped in my mind that I forgot to tell you. There is so much to tell you. We are going to pause for a second, make sure we're okay with those 2 screens. And while you're thinking about questions you might have there, I'm going to go back to the My Student screen. Okay, one thing that I would like to do before we leave is to copy a document, create a document from a previous document. So I'm going to go back to Sanford Price just to make sure that you see this. I'll click on his special education tab and a new document. This time I would like to create a progress report. So there's a little bit of confusion with progress reports because we used to have many in the old system, and we have now narrowed it down to these 4 types: the 6B, the 6A, the transition and goals / objective, and the WEP PR. The one that you are going to want to use most likely is the 6A. I want to make sure I said that correctly. I'm looking to make sure no one says, no, you said it wrong. Nope, 6A. Okay, so I'm going to choose that progress report. I'm going to pick my date, whatever that date may be. And now I'm going to go ahead and copy from, and select a document. That would be the IEP that is open, but I can do this from a closed IEP as well. And we'll create. And you'll notice that my 3 goals that I created with you earlier are already in here. So I don't have to go back and try to copy all that information. It is copy from the document, the IEP, to the progress report. Okay, that was one thing I wanted to make sure I told you. And we're going to go here So we saw the print preview to print individual students. We saw on the student profile where you can print their one IEP summary for one student. But let's say you'd like to print a few more at one time. You don't want to go student by student. So in the new version that will be coming to you soon, you'll see a button for print student documents. And so I'm going to demo that right now. And here's where the button is. And when you click on that, you get a dialog box, and we're going to talk about that dialog box right now, and we're going to cross our fingers that everything works the way it should. So let's see what we got. I'm on the My Student screen, print student documents. My choices are to print for my students in a group, multiple students that I'm going to be checking off. I can print a closed IEP summary, a completed IEP summary, the most recent IEP that has been completed. I can select that one. Or I can print progress reports that are open. So these are my two choices, and I must make that selection here. Let me go ahead and click on students so I can start to select my students. And I hope, let's see, do I have one for Lori Abbott? Okay, so I start to type in the name just like I did before, and I can get Lori's. And I think we might have one. I gotta see who we have one for. Is Malcolm? Oh, maybe Barker. So Sabrina Barker. Now this will be easier for you because you'll know your students and be able to type them in faster. I was trying to peek at who I could. I can continue to list my students here who have documents to print. This would be the students who have an IEP summary that I am able to print. I'll click on create. And this is kind of like a job. So I've requested it, and now it needs to put that job together. And you can see that I did one yesterday already that is ready. So we have viewed, we have requested. I think there might be another status here as well. You can always click on refresh to try to get it to go a little faster, or at least to make sure that you can see when it is ready. It's not really going to go faster. That's just all of us click happy people. But you can also see here that if I click on the link when it is ready, I can click on the link and I should be able to see two. Here's Lori's that I will be printing, and we'll scroll down, and here's Sandra's, which looks so much better than my sample one because she has more information there. And I can either download these if I needed to, or I can select print. I am using Google Chrome, so I'm not here to teach you about that, but certainly you can see your options for printing based on whatever printer you are using and whatever browser you are using. So let me cancel that. I'm going to close that tab and come back over here. If I said, you know what, I really don't need this one anymore, because you're going to start to see a list here if you use this often, I can go ahead and delete that job, that group of documents. Okay. So this will sort of walk you through it. You just have to make some choices here. It says choose a document type and etc. And that's going to be on the My Student screen, print student documents. This is where I say, I'm so happy. I think we're almost finished here. So I promised you that I would get you some login information so you can play with it. Let me just do two more things and then I will get that for you. First of all, I want to remind you, resources are available to you. I think I see a couple of emails to me, and I promise if you are in this webinar right now and you ask me a question by email, I will get back to you later today. The two links you see here are really important. If you have those, you will see the currently you'll see all the new SPS information on the training tab for the link now. Next year, it'll be under next school year. All right, one more. It's really important that if you continue to have questions, that you contact your administrator at your school, your special services person, whoever that may be, or you contact LACA. We are all here for you, and that is the order you'll start with. Start in your school with questions you may have, and then go to LACA. And of course, we are working with LACA to make sure we help answer questions as well. You will get a certificate today, and you will also get a feedback request. So I really appreciate your time, and I know this was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Maybe it, gave you a little something to do instead of whatever else we're trying to get done as we are all in isolation here. If you do not receive a certificate by Monday, please go ahead and email me or email LACA, and we will make sure that you get that certificate. So just, you know, in case something is held up, I promise that we will get that for you so that you have these contact hours that you may need. All right. So logging in is, and let me just wait for a second. I see some people are asking for my email, so I'll ask my my coworkers if they want to put that in there, or if you want to email LACA, and then we will go through LACA. So I know, like we said, Megan is on the line, or you can email LACA support, and we will make sure that we work with everyone. If you did email me a question, I will make sure that I email you back. Okay, enough about that. For those of you who want to start practicing, I am going to share with you in the chat a Google Doc. Oh, this is going to be fun because I've never done this before. We are going to share this link with you in the chat. Now, what this is going to do for you is give you the LACA morning session and a bunch of logins. I have 60 on here. If you would be so kind, in fact, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you would be so kind as just to put either your first name or your initials, it doesn't matter what you put in here. This would be your login information so that you can play with this during our isolation time. You can start playing with this now, and that will give you an opportunity. So let me walk you through what you'll be doing. You'll be going to the site here, democa.progressbook.com. You will be putting in essay training 3 as your domain, or essay training 4, because there's a lot of you in this session. And then you have an option for your username, which is just the word intervention with a number. And then training 67 is your password. This site, and I'm going to go back to it right now and log out so you can see it. Now listen to me carefully, everyone. Pay attention. Now I really sound like a teacher, don't I? Pay attention for just a moment. When you go to this demo site, it's really important that you know this is usually refreshed each weekend. That's a nice thing because you can do anything you want with it, and we're going to wipe it out each weekend. It's also important for you to know that we are sharing this with many people across the state. So if you have an issue or a problem, don't put a ticket into LACA. This is just a courtesy from us to help you get used to the new demo site, especially because this was supposed to be a hands-on session, and I'm so sorry that it could not be. So pay attention to that. And one more thing, we are on a different version on our demo site. So at some point next week, the demo site will be down so that we can upload the new version, the 19.5.2 version. So understand that I cannot make any guarantees on your practice time, but at least it's a place to get started. All right, so questions about getting into the demo site. And I'm only asking for your names on the Google Sheet just so we make sure we all use a different login. Any questions at all? Okay, so Sue, I'm not sure if you're asking about your own real site, because that's not happening yet. So let's just make sure we understand what you're asking. You can use the demo site today. You can use the demo site next week to practice. Just be aware that not all of the functionality is in there just yet. Okay, so Sue, for your IEPs due right now, you are still using Classic. The process is going to be up to your district and LACA. And Megan, I'm not sure if you want to chime in on this or not. I don't want to overstep. Okay, just a few words about the process to migrate. Migration is up to your district and LACA. So you will not see this new system until your district talks to LACA and LACA gives a date and it all gets completed. There's a lot of steps that need to be done before you will see the new system with your current ID and your current IEPs. All right, any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the recycle bin for deleted documents, is that only if you're deleting a whole entire IEP, or will they go to the recycle bin if they're just individual pages?
No, it's going to be the recyclable bin. No, I'm sorry, the recycle bin is for the entire document.
So if you delete only an individual page, it will not be in the recycle bin?
So the only individual pages that you would be deleting would be the additional pages at this time. And yes, you are right. They will not go into the recycle bin. And I'll make sure that my coworkers are double checking that for me, but no, they will not go into the recycle bin.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Susan, I didn't quite hear the whole question. Was it that if they deleted certain sections from a document, would that go into the recycle bin?
That is the question.
No, it will not. The recycle bin is for deleted documents, entire documents.
Okay, good, I had that right.
If a section is deleted from a document, it does not go to the recycle bin. You just simply would add it again. But the data would be gone.
Okay, good. All right, we will hold on for 10 more minutes or until everyone's gone. We have a few people have already left. I really thank you for your patience. Again, I will be sending out those certificates. If you don't see it in your email, please give me till Monday and you will have that certificate for your purposes. Thank you all. Stay safe. And special thank you to my coworkers who answered questions. I wasn't even looking, so I appreciate that. And a special thank you to LACA for allowing us to do this way. I think I'm hoping it was worthwhile to everyone. And we had no internet problems. I'm so excited. I hope that none of you had internet problems either. I am going to stop the recording and we will be sharing the recording as soon as it is ready to be shared. This will take a little bit of time on my home computer.